This Defeating Adventism is going to be once again centered around children. I made one on the Trinity, I don't know, I want to say about 4, 5, 6 weeks ago at most, starting using a children's book and how Adventism totally screws up an explanation, an accurate explanation of the Trinity. So this here, we're going to start here, and I'm starting again with another children's book, which a good friend of mine suggested. He pointed this out to me, and I looked at this and said, got to do a video on this. Got a children's book here from 1975. In this children's book is a letter from Ellen White to her son that's going to get kind of changed and made applicable to the child here you see in the book. This book does reference, and you'll see that references this book by Ruth Wheeler from 1939. Let me see, 1939, and that where the actual letter that's cited in here comes from. We're going to talk about that first. Then we're going to morph and change into a different letter from Ellen White pertaining to children. First released in 1990. Here, this is Manuscript Releases, number 9. That same letter was again released in 2014 in this, really, I think it's a beautiful book. Letters and Manuscripts with Annotations, Volume 1 from 2014. Let's see, what year is this? And I'm still waiting for Volume 2. But I think we'll find out why Volume 2 is being a little delayed here. So we're going to start off with these 4 books here. Now, there's a lot that can be said about Ellen White and her advice to children. And a lot of it's bad, by the way. Some of it, her advice to parents and children, is just downright scary, evil, and wicked. There's just no other way around it. This video is going to examine 2 letters. As you saw, the first letters are going to come from the children's book and the Ruth Wheeler book, which you'll see. The other letters are going to come from Manuscript Releases, Volume 9, and then the 2014 letters and manuscripts with annotations. So we're going to start with the children's book from 1975, and it's going to reference the Ellen White letter. The children's book is going to say the letter is from 1860, I believe, but it's the Ruth Wheeler book says, no, it's 1859, so there's just that small discrepancy. Then we're going to examine, after that, a letter to parents about children that is just most evil, wicked, and frightening. But first, we're going to start with the 1975 book. Let's start there. Okay, so here's the book that you just saw. Tell Me About Ellen White, 1975. You can see the copyright, and it's in small text right there. Then in the very front of this book, it states that this material on pages 29 and 31 is from a letter written in 1860. It's actually 1859. And you can see it on these 2 pages, 115, 116, in this book that you just saw me hold up, His Messenger by Ruth Wheeler, where we can see the actual letter that's going to be used in the book here. Now, so we're going to jump to page 27, and Mom is talking to her little son here. And he says, hey, here is a message from Miss White to her own precious son. I think it's a good one for you and for every boy and girl to listen. Let's go to page 28. So she's going to take this letter, and you can see it in quote marks. The Lord loves those children who try to do right, and He has promised that they shall be in His kingdom. Letter 3, 1860. Remember, it's 1859. So the Lord loves what? Children who do right, which, of course, it's unstated, but it means the Lord does not love those children who do not do right. What kind of parent would really, and now this is your spirit of prophecy again, Seventh-day Adventists, giving this kind of guidance? The Lord loves those little children who do right, i.e., He does not love the ones that do wrong, and He's promised them the kingdom. Okay. But anyway, we're going to continue because it's going to go downhill from here for the rest of this video. Then Mother said, and here's another message Miss White wrote to her own son Willie. But any boy's or girl's name could be put in. So I'll say your name, David, instead of Willie's as I read. And she goes on to read this. Now, dear David or Willie, try to do right always, and then no black mark will be set down against you. I mean, where is that in the Bible? Seventh-day Adventist? That children who do not do right are going to have a black mark in God's sin book of children. I want that Bible verse. It's got to be in 2nd Hezekiah chapter 3, I think. God's black mark against children. This is just absurd from your spirit of prophecy, who's supposed to be your spiritual guide in your religion. And then she goes on and further says in here that, and if you do good, you're going to get a wreath of gold put on your head. You're going to get a little harp. You can play, and you can eat rich fruit. Where's that in the Bible? This is just silly nonsense to what Ellen White has done here. Now, remember what I said. That letter came out of this book from 1939, The Messenger. You can see here's where the letter starts on page 114. It ends on 115. And there's the actual letter. And here's the pieces we just saw in the children's book. The Lord loves, i.e. doesn't love, those who don't do right. And promises in the kingdom. That's works-based righteousness. Do good, go to heaven. Do bad, don't go to heaven. Works-based righteousness. Sorry, Ellen White, that's not in the Bible. We are saved sinners. We're not doing good. That's Islam, actually, works-based righteousness. There's another Islamic similarity I see in Seventh-day Adventism. And then what? He loves you when you do right and writes it down in his book when you do wrong. Okay, again, I want to see the scriptural verse. Like I said, find it for me in 2nd Hezekiah chapter 3, where God keeps his sin book of children with black marks, and I'm going to oppose, if they're not black marks, then they're blue marks or some other mark when they do right. This is just bad guidance that I would expect from a well-meaning, non-Christian educated parent. But this is your spirit of prophecy, who's supposed to be beyond educated, because she is the prophet that gives you your doctrines, Seventh-day Adventist. So thus far, what do we have? We got Ellen White treating God as a club or a cudgel to beat her child, her son, into good submission. To say that God, that you better behave or he's going to give you a black mark. Or God only loves children who do right. What she doesn't say, but what's implied clearly in the sentence, is God does not love children who do wrong. I might expect this from some uneducated, unlearned, Christian parent who means to do well, but is not. This is your spirit of prophecy, Adventist. This is your learned, supposedly, air quotes, learned spirit of prophecy, who's saying God is going to keep a sin book of children and give you little black marks when you do bad. You know what that is? That's works righteousness. In other words, you're only going to go to heaven, Ellen White's son, if you behave. And then you're going to get a crown, and you can pluck flowers, and you can play a harp, and you can eat fruit. Where's that in the Bible, by the way? Again, this is your spirit of prophecy. This isn't some parent who's meaning to do well and may not be, doing well and maybe needs some guidance. This is your spirit of prophecy. This is your person who gives you doctrine for your church that you follow today, i.e. investigative judgment. I mean, to state all these things is bad and bad enough, but it's going to get much worse. We're going to start with Manuscript Release number 9, and let's start there. So we had our summary on Ellen White and what she did in the first book. And if you don't think that's bad, like I said, this is going to continue to get worse. So we're going to start here with Manuscript Releases, 1990. And Manuscript Releases, I think, what are they up to now? Is it 15, 19 volumes, 17 volumes? It's some big number like that where the manuscripts are being released. That's what you think, and that's what I think too. Very important, and I'm going to say it again, this is 1990. It's a key date here. Remember that date. Here is Manuscript Release, page 321, and this is the beginning of the letter for this particular manuscript release. It ends on page 323, and it identifies this release. It's manuscript 3 from 1854. Keep that in mind. Begins on page 321. It begins right here. The next thing was shown to me was the great sins of parents, and you can see it ends here on 323. Now, what does Ellen White say about children here? Think you God can cover or hide and preserve children whose iniquity he hates? So God hates the sin of children? No, never. God hates the passion, evil tempers, etc., manifested by unruly children. I like this. Okay, look at this, Adventist. He cannot save them in their time of trouble. God cannot save children in their time of trouble. They will be eternally lost. Parents, neglect unfaithful parents. Their blood will be upon you. She's announcing the curse upon the parents. And can you expect to be saved in the day of God's fierce anger with the blood of your children upon you? Whoa. Yeah, let this sink in. Read this again, Seventh-day Adventist or non-Seventh-day Adventist. God can't save children in their time of trouble because of their evil tempers and their unruly. Parents, you neglect them, their blood is on your head. So says your prophetess Ellen White. How can you be expected to be saved in the day of God's fierce anger with the blood of your children upon you? Like, whoa, I told you this is going to get worse. And you know what? It's going to get worse from here. Now, what I want you to do is remember this paragraph that's underlined in red, because we're going to visit it again a couple more times. But remember that was 1990. 2012, something happened. It forced some changes. Guess what happened? SDA Anonymous. Whether you can say they stole documents or hacked into the Seventh-day Adventist digital archive, you can pick your choice, but they are called SDA Anonymous, as you see here in this article from, I believe it's March of 2012. What happened? Kind of inspired by WikiLeaks, an announcement with the intention of releasing digital versions of previously unpublished Ellen White manuscript. These individuals got into the archives, got some manuscripts, and said, hey, we got digital versions of these, and we're going to start kicking them out, 1 or 2 or 3 at a time. So the website, right, Anonymous, they describe its project as the work of a what? Network of Adventist students and laypeople located near the Ellen G. White research centers at several universities and colleges, etc., around the world. So this is a network known as SDA Anonymous. Got these manuscripts. And they said, you know what? We're going to scan or photocopy a few and release them every so often in this pool of materials. Now, this has just got to scare the bejeebers out of the White estate, because there's obviously a reason why some of these manuscripts have not been released, and we will see why. And then they go on to say, this is the SDA Anonymous website, this slow pace of obtaining copies of unreleased materials was speeded up by a leak from a staff member at one of the research centers, claims the SDA Anonymous webpage. Well, then the White estate says, well, no, not at all. Even among those with positions high in the White estate, we're happy with the policies restricting access to unpublished materials, which is as it is today, and even more so now because of this. In 2012, you just can't waltz into some place and look at Ellen White's unpublished writings. They won't let you do it. Well, the website says that for more than 12 years, the White estate's been telling us that they're going to be publishing materials within the next few years. Always within the next few years. Then within the next few years. And it doesn't happen. And then what happens? They say, well, we get these, they refer to compilations, the SDA Anonymous group, and negatively, they say, because they release sections of the material often out of its original context and close supervision. In other words, the White estate is going to decide what gets released, what gets scrubbed, what doesn't get released. And so this group says, no, the heck with it. We're going to start
throwing down some documents. Well, because of that, the book you saw me hold up earlier from 2014, Letters and Manuscripts with Annotations, see, it's called Volume 1 from 2014. Here we are, 7 years later. There is no Volume 2. I've gone on to the Advent Review and Herald website and looked at some of the comments related to this book, and I noticed, at least at that time that I looked, which wasn't all that long ago, they're asking, Faithful Adventists, are going like, hey, where's Volume 2? It ain't coming out yet. It's been many years. Didn't we just read in the Adventist Today article that Seventh-day Adventists are pretty upset because the White Estate says, we're going to be releasing documents soon? Well, we're still waiting for Volume 2 here. They're back to their old tricks. Well, happens to be in this volume is Manuscript 3, 1854. That's the exact same manuscript we just looked at in Volume 9 of Manuscript Releases from 1990. Here we are in 2014. Now we have the whole letter. Look, the whole letter, this letter starts here. Look, on page 408. By the time I flip over in this book and get to page 412, this is where Manuscript Release number 9 starts. They do not include from pages 408 almost all the way to 412. That letter has been scrubbed of all this text. But do they tell you that in Manuscript Release number 9? No, they don't. They just start it right here with the words, the next thing was shown me, etc. And if you think about it, look at this. The next thing shown me, this is following something. And indeed it is if you read back, because Ellen says she was shown all kinds of things. They don't tell you that in Manuscript Release number 9 on page 321. They just put this there like it's the whole letter. The letter then ends here on page 414. And it goes on for another page and a half of text. So they scrubbed out text in the beginning, they scrubbed out text in the end, and they don't tell you what they took out or why. See, with this SDA Anonymous, it just forced their hand to put the whole letter in this book. And now we can look at the whole letter. Now, remember this? You saw it earlier. I want you to commit to memory the first 2.5 lines. Think you can cover or hide and preserve children whose iniquity he hates? No, never. God hates the passion, evil tempers, etc., manifested by unruly children. With that fresh in mind, here's the same letter. Think you God can cover or hide iniquity and preserve children whom he hates? God hates unruly children. What? You didn't read that over here. God hates unruly children? Right after no, never. Right after no, never, it says what? God hates unruly children. They changed the letter. Here they are in 1990. Somebody took it upon themselves to edit this letter, identified as Manuscript 3, 1854. Here's Manuscript 3, 1854. Look at the top here. This is the actual letter, unedited. The yellow line doesn't exist in the Manuscript Release number 9. They changed the words. How deceptive. Then remember what else Ellen White said? So anyway, Ellen White says, God hates unruly children? Whoa. Does he? Really? Listen to those words and let those sink in, Adventist. And again, read the rest of the red text. He cannot save them. God is unable to save unruly children. They're going to be eternally lost. Parents, neglect, unfaithful parents, their blood be upon you. And can you expect to be saved in the day of God's fierce anger with the blood of your children upon you? Children who might have been saved had you acted as faithful parents should. Wow. In Adventism, this is a severe condemnation from your wicked prophet. Just read this text and tell me how you cannot attach the word wicked to this. That's all it is. Ellen White is wicked. God hates unruly children. Here it is again. Here's the same letter. Manuscript 3, 1854. God hates the passion and evil tempers. God hates unruly children. What do we have here? We got plain rank manipulation of an Ellen White letter to try to save face, to try to save Ellen White's face. But you know, SDA Anonymous forced your hand and made you publish this book in 2014. Oh, but it keeps getting worse. Here we are in this book here, letters and manuscripts. There's a footnote. There's God hates unruly children. Then it says 18. And it says, see Manuscript 1, 1854, note 19. Okay, let's go do that. And when I went to that page, and this is just a footnote for number 19, I looked at this and went, oh my gosh, look at all the ink they spilled for like 5 words. And this isn't the end of it. It goes on to the next page for about another paragraph. And I saw this and I went, oh yes, this is going to be a gold mine. When you have to spill this much ink to explain a few words, you know there's trouble. So I took this piece here and broke it up into 2 pieces so we can expand the text and look at it a little closer. Let's do that now. Note 19. When Ellen White edited this statement for publication in the review 7 months later, she rephrased it to read, God cannot love unruly children who manifest passion. Also, they're saying, also she revised this statement from 1854, 7 months later. And then they talk about that this statement about God hating unruly children, together with a warning to her 5-year-old son in 1860 that wicked and naughty children God does not love. Now, wait a second. Now look at this. Manuscript 3, 1854. They want to tell me that in the review, and by the way, this is the review right here. It's the September 19th, 1854. That she revised it and toned it down. And that's supposed to be good? What's 1854 plus 6 years? That's 1860. And what does she say in 1860? Wicked, naughty children God does not love. She didn't change her tone at all. This same quote can be found in this book, An Appeal to Youth, in 1864. And here it is. The Lord loves those little children who try to, there it is again, works-based righteousness. And he promises that they shall be in his kingdom if they do good, that works-based righteousness. But wicked children God does not love. He will not take them to the beautiful city, for he only admits the good, obedient, and patient children there. Boy, if that's not just dripping with works-based righteousness, I don't know what is. Now, remember what they said, that she revised this statement 7 months later. Yeah, but what about 6 years later? Where, what? But wicked children God does not love? No, she hasn't changed her tone at all. Let's keep reading here, though. Now they say, critics have asked, how could someone who claimed to receive heavenly visions be so terribly wrong about the character of God? No kidding. How can you be so wrong? Let's let them answer. It is difficult to reconcile this thesis of a harsh early Ellen White with the very different picture of her that is revealed in many other statements from her pen during the same period. You know what they just did right here? They just said, you know what, we can't do it. Don't know why. That we got wicked Ellen and early, but that they say, well, if we look at her later, we got softer, kinder, gentler Ellen. And then they go on to want to show us, well, here, look at all these, these 4, 5, or 6, and I don't have the whole page here, but look at all these kind things that she says later. You can't reconcile it, Seventh-day Adventist. You got wicked Ellen. God hates unruly children. And then what? They say she toned it down 7 months later. But boy, she's right back at the pole again here in 1860 when she wrote that to her son about God hating children. It is amazing. Let's keep reading here. Second part of this. Clearly God does not, now they're trying to justify it. Remember what they said, we can't reconcile it? But guess what they're going to do here? They're going to try to reconcile it. God clearly does not take pleasure in children or any persons when they engage in evil, wicked acts. This aspect of God's disfavor is expressed in Scripture, such as Psalm 11:5. Then they quote, "The Lord tests the righteous, but the wicked and the one who loves violence, his soul hates." This would seem to be the most likely sense of the term hate and love used by Ellen White when she writes that God does not love wicked, naughty children. You know what we're going to do here, friends? We're going to read Psalm 11, 1 through, I think it's 7 or 8. Because you know what I know about Seventh-day Adventists? They love to quote Bible verses, and they do so to their own demise because the ignorance that they show when they read the whole Bible passage refutes their position. Let's look at Psalm 11, the entire psalm. This is a Psalm of David. So let me set the tone here for you. Commentators have two thoughts on this. David is either fleeing from Saul or he's fleeing from Absalom. Remember, Absalom was his son who came back to Jerusalem and started, in essence, with a coup, was going to take over the throne, and was going to, and David fled Jerusalem for his life. So this is one of two things commentators believe. They either believe it's because of the threat of Absalom, his son, who was taking over the throne in Jerusalem, going to kill him, or it's Saul hunting David down and wanting to kill him. The first 3 verses are David talking to his counselors. Let's read the first 3 verses. "To the choir master of David, in the Lord I take refuge. How can you say," that's his counselors, "to my soul, flee like a bird to your mountain"? See, his counselors saying, "Flee, David, flee. They're going to kill you," whether it's Absalom or Saul. "For behold, the wicked bend the bow." The wicked bend the bow. Do children bend the bow? Well, anyway, let's continue. "They have fitted their arrow to the string to shoot in the dark at the upright in heart. If foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do?" So this is David's response to his counselors. And the wicked bend the bow. That's the wicked that are chasing him. These are men. These are warriors. Or in case of Absalom's case, they're traitors. But nonetheless, they're men hunting down David. Where do you see children at in here? You don't. Let's read verse 4 and on. "The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes see, his eyelids test the children of man. The Lord tests the righteousness, but his soul hates the wicked and the one who loves violence." The one. One? Absalom? Saul? So the Lord tests the righteousness, but his soul hates the wicked and the one who loves violence. "Let him," okay, speaking of the wicked, "let him rain coals on the wicked. Fire and sulfur and scorching wind shall be the portion of their cup." Well, Seventh-day Adventists, why don't you quote verse 6? If the children are wicked and Ellen White says that, and 11:5 is what she means, well, why doesn't she mean let the coals and wicked fire and sulfur and scorching wind be rained down upon the heads of children? Let's keep reading. "For the Lord is righteous, and he loves righteous deeds. The upright shall behold his face." This is a psalm of David, either fleeing Saul or fleeing Absalom. And he is recognizing that those that are chasing him are the wicked ones. This has nothing to do with a general application of children. It's about a specific incident at a specific time taking place in Jerusalem. Then they go on to say, understood in this light of Psalm 11:5, which they just blew. They just got it wrong. Ellen White's language here is misconstrued if it's to be made to conflict with her other statements from the same period affirming God's love for erring youth. You can't even quote Psalm 11:5 right, you guys. So no, and you said what? In the previous, they said we can't reconcile her statements, but then when they got to do, they try to reconcile them. And then when they try to reconcile them, it's a train wreck because you just misused Scripture, as you always do, Adventist. So let's end here. God hates unruly children who manifest passion, evil, and tempers. So says Ellen White. What does Christ say? Christ says, and said, truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoa. Christ says you got to become like a child. Ellen says God hates children who manifest passion and evil tempers. What else did Christ say? But Jesus said, let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of heaven. Not according to Ellen White, because God hates unruly children. But Jesus said, nah, let the children come to me, for such is the kingdom of heaven. I have nothing to say about Ellen White except this. She is absolutely wicked in her statements. And this is one of the most unchristian things I have heard, and especially from somebody who's supposed to be the spirit of prophecy and in the remnant church. No, Ellen White is a false prophet. Get out of her, my Adventist friends.